What I wanted to ask you about is the readiness of your people when you're about to execute a mission. How do you know they're ready? I find that to be really fascinating. Can you look them in the eye and just say, this person is ready to go, or what's your process there?
Yeah, you're never really sure, right? You're never really sure that you're ready for a mission, particularly if it's a new mission. So your preparation, as you work with your group, with your unit in my case, has to account for that uncertainty. Now, we've made this question more about how to be ready for a new mission. The alternative would be how we prepare to execute the same mission that we're accustomed to doing, but in a very different set of circumstances. In my own life, I experienced a situation that was actually a combination of both. I was a commander of an Air Force F-16 squadron tasked to deploy to Afghanistan. The mission that we were tasked to conduct was close air support, which was a tertiary mission for our unit, which means we didn't do it very much. Next, our particular version of F-16 had not been based in Afghanistan, despite the fact that the war had been going on for over 8 years. We brought some new equipment that had never been fielded in our version of the F-16 in Afghanistan. And then of our 24 pilots assigned to the unit, only 3 had flown in combat before. And so, like I said, you're never really sure. The way that we improved our chances of success, right, the readiness that you described, came in several ways. First, we focused on the basics. In our case, the basics was understanding how to do clear communications with ground parties who very lives depended on us doing our jobs well. And next, we had to make sure that our weapons deliveries were precise and always on target. Those were the basics for us. There were a lot of other things that went on. Next, in our preparation, we had to accept uncertainty. The way we did that was we got away from our home base, our home ranges, right, our own squadron building, and we deployed to another base to work alongside another unit that was going to Afghanistan. So in unfamiliar ranges with unfamiliar ground parties, it gave us a chance to inject some of that uncertainty. Anytime you're doing something new, you're going to fail. And so we learned to embrace failure, and our focus became not on assigning blame, but on developing a culture of learning. All right. The way we did that, and it's a fighter pilot culture, we focused on the debrief. Now, in a fighter squadron, oftentimes pilots will spend longer debriefing the mission, deriving lessons from it, than they will actually flying it. All right. And so we focused on the debrief and understanding what happened and why, so that we could improve performance relative to even uncertainties, right, the next time we walked out the door. There's an execution side of this too, anytime you're doing something new. What I mean is we take what we have and we go into a mission, but then hopefully we improve the mission over time. And so that involves monitoring performance. During the specific deployment, I personally made sure that I watched the weapons deliveries of every weapon employment that we had over the entire deployment, oftentimes with the pilot who employed the weapon beside me. And so when you're doing a months-long deployment, not everything matters, but one of the things that had to matter was how we were delivering lethal effects in support of U.S. ground forces. And by doing that, we improved over time. And then finally, it is about rewarding performance. And nothing speaks to what you value. Nothing speaks to what amounts to accomplishing the mission than rewarding a performance at the individual, group, and unit level. And so ultimately, while it is about preparation, it's about learning in stride, right? And it's about making sure that as you complete the mission, that the unit or group has improved throughout.
Mm-hmm. That debrief process is interesting and fascinating because I would imagine as a part of the culture, you want people to be very direct, very honest, and then oftentimes ego might kind of rise up in an individual, but they have to accept that feedback. Can you talk about how you get people there to accept that feedback? I know it's a matter of life and death, and so even the smallest error can lead to really poor outcomes. But how do you ingrain this ability to provide feedback and accept the feedback?
Yeah. So in the context that I provided, which is within a fighter squadron, it is an inherent facets of its culture. What I mean is in the sanctuary that is a debrief, whether you're the most junior wingman in the squadron, or in my case, the squadron commander at the time, once in the debrief, we used to say the rank comes off, and we are all avid learners. We are all accountable for our mistakes, and we all contribute to helping the flight do better for the future. And so that culture is pervasive. And then we're quick to correct amongst ourselves if folks inevitably, and they do inevitably struggle with ego, with challenges of taking feedback in the debrief. How you tailor that feedback also really matters, right? We debrief to grow and to learn, not to blame or to shame. And so the delivery is also part of that. And then, as a longtime flight instructor, right? So I was instructor in the F-16 for the majority of my career. Instruction is such an interpersonal matter, and it's not about what you just convey. It's about how it's received by the student, by the fellow pilot, right? And so you've got to instruct and speak and debrief in a way that's palatable to your audience. It goes with the territory.
The intent of the feedback, I think, is really critical. You said the feedback is not to blame and shame. It's to learn and grow. And I find that to be probably the most important part of feedback. And yeah, making that part of the culture, I think, is really critical. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
And so it is, so what I just described, I attribute it to a fighter squadron, but I think it has universal utility. And so this is not a book promotion per se, but a longtime colleague and friend of mine, a guy named Cujo Teschner, produced a book called Debriefing to Win. And it actually did really well on the New York Times bestseller. And what he took is that culture of the debrief and learning after execution as it improves an organization over time. And he exported it to, the broader business world. And it's done really well because it just makes sense. And it's how we get better.